The views expressed on this episode, as with all episodes of We Hate Your Baby Daddy, are based solely on our personal opinions and shit we heard in the streets.
The content here should not be taken as indisputable fact. This show is for entertainment purposes only, so enjoy and don't come for us.
Welcome back to another episode of We Hate Your Baby Daddy. So, this episode is going to be about Thomas Jefferson, but we wanted to start it off by reading some baby daddy stories, from out in the world. The first one we found on the internet, you know what, we don't even really need to say where we found it. It was on a forum, for moms, basically. Do you please take it away and read this story?
So we're just reading the stories because they're a little bit more lighthearted than the darkness of the founding fathers. So, husband hates taking family photos, so we're just going to do it without him. Our real estate agent offers free family photos of you purchased a house from her. Was that a sentence?
Uh, no, I think she meant to say if you purchased a house from her, but she says
Okay, if
of,
you
so we
purchase a
fucked it
house
up.
from her. Okay. Well, as we're saying, we're getting this directly from the internet. So if you hear me saying things that don't make sense, I'm reading it
She's
directly
like
from these
Ron
women. They're
Burgundy.
very stressed.
She reads it directly from the teleprompter.
They're very stressed, and you should see my face. Like my eyebrows are like really like cinched. Like, wait, am I reading that right? Fuck it, we're going live. We're going
We're doing
live.
it live. Okay, go ahead, go ahead.
The photographer is pretty good. My husband hates family photos and apparently has no time to get ready and get a haircut. Mm, it's a lousy excuse for 10 minutes of his time. Anyway, I told him he doesn't have to go. All of the pictures he takes of me with the kids, he doesn't put any effort into it. No, one, two, three. Man, this dude doesn't even count down. He just clicks it. Okay. It's usually just his finger in the way or a poorly timed photo. I don't know if it's on purpose or he just doesn't care enough. Either way, it's never good. So I'm going to do this with my kids so I can have pretty pictures together without fingers or a horrible looking face that apparently seems like only my husband can capture. It's not my problem he doesn't want to do it. Am I a bitch for doing it without him? Tagged man rant.
I hate to laugh because it's like I do want to feel bad for her. I mean, obviously, nobody wants their baby daddy being like, "Oh, I don't want to take pictures of you," but it's like when you can't see the forest for the trees. It's like he doesn't like you, man. He probably doesn't even like your kids. I'm sorry. He takes pictures by himself and he posts them on dating sites, right? I mean,
Honestly,
that's what
like
he's doing.
the first thing in a relationship is effort, and the man can't even like bother to count down or move his finger out the way. He hates you and
He
he hates
hates
his
you so
kids.
much, sister. Like,
He won't even
you,
get his hair cut. Oh my God, is that why he can't take a good picture? Is it like his
that's
bangs
what
are
he
in the way
said,
and he just can't even see?
bro. I mean, that she says in the post that's a weak excuse, and it's like I mean, that's beyond. It's like he's not getting his haircut, so it's like he's to his own detriment, making himself look like shit to go out of his way so he doesn't take pictures with you. Like,
Honestly, didn't I tell you that like that was one of the deciding factors of like me being like I cannot do this with my baby daddy anymore, like the lack of
really?
physical effort. Yeah, like he was very handsome and then he just kind of like withered away. He
Oh,
didn't want to
well,
wear his
yeah.
contacts anymore. He wore like glasses. He didn't want to get his hair cut. He had like that horrible beard. And I like rolled over and like looked at him one day. I'm like, I can't do this. I can't wake up to this every day.
I can't get jiggy with this.
I can't get jiggy with this shit.
You know what? I kind of want to know like what some of these comments are saying in reply to her. They're all saying she's not a bitch for taking pictures and that she should get it printed out, framed, and hang it up somewhere he has to see it every day. He's not gonna care. That's the problem with these girls on this forum. It's like, honey, he's not gonna care. He probably brings bitches to the house when she's at work and the kids are at daycare, and he's like, yeah, this is like my sister and her kids. That's why I'm not in any of the photos. Like, men are fucking devious, yo.
They really are. It's actually pretty sad. We really should suggest to them, like we should just have like a burner account. Like You should Photoshop him in, like, floating in the background. Like, this is your family picture. Just send it to
Take the
like your
ugliest,
in-laws.
most like off the cuff picture of him and he doesn't know it's coming, and then and just slack that in there. Okay, so let's read another baby daddy story. I'll read this one. It is from actually one of our fans.
Lovely.
So we're gonna call this guy, this baby daddy, we're gonna call him Messy Techie.
Mm.
So my friend, she's like a nurse director of nurses, like at this big hospital, and she says, "Hey Bree, I have a great baby daddy story with my staff. One of my techs lives with his baby mom, and they just had their second baby like a week ago. He claims they are not together and that he is a single dad, and he's always flirting with a nurse on the staff. Then he got that nurse pregnant. So now the nurse is pregnant like 6 months, and he's living with his baby mama and their two kids. Baby mama doesn't know about the nurse's pregnancy. And then his baby mama saw him texting the nurse once and she got pissed. She says, I can only imagine how this is going to go down. I'm waiting for it to implode and they both work on my floor." And that is the messy techie. Like, how could you? I mean, there's levels to how fucked up this baby daddy is. Like,
That's
you're gonna
quite
shit where you eat.
messy.
You're gonna shit where you eat. You're
He
gonna
diarrheaed where he ate.
you're cheating on your baby mama with one of your coworkers, and everybody knows. Obviously, I mean, my friend is the one telling me this, like, so she can't be the only one that knows. Good Lord.
This is another example of the sassy man apocalypse. Like, this man lives for drama. What could be
He
the end
does.
result of this but like a full-on love and hip hop fight with him in the middle of it?
Like, he could have wrapped it up at any point. I mean, if you're gonna cheat on your baby mama with one of your coworkers, step one, use a condom. You're in a hospital, there's gotta be condoms somewhere. I mean, it's medical equipment, right? I mean, medical paraphernalia. Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know.
But that's just like
Yeah,
that's just
messy
like men.
techie.
You're so
Of course.
messy. You couldn't wrap it up. You couldn't resist banging one of your coworkers. And you know what? That's kind of shitty on her part too, because it's like, I'm sure she knew that he lived with his baby mama, but still, I really believe that in that case, he could have been a lot more responsible.
I give that a out of 10.
Uh, mm, 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 out of 10. And for those two baby daddies that we just read to you about, we hate them.
Hate.
Yeah, I hate capital
They're
H
not
hate.
like a nuclear level threat. Like, these are very like ordinarily threat level baby daddies, but
Yeah,
they're
the
irritating.
middle of the terrorism threat level.
Yeah. You can call the cops, but you don't need to call the army.
So, right into the show. Send us voice messages. You can send them on Spotify and Instagram. And we're gonna hop into Thomas Jefferson.
Here we go.
On the last episode, we spoke about a famous baby daddy. Today, we're going to talk about a historical baby daddy. Trigger warning for this episode, it's going to contain some discussion about child abuse, sexual assault, and slavery.
Today, we'll be talking about a founding father and third president of the United States, Thomas motherfucking disgusting piece of shit, child rapist Jefferson.
Boom. So, as you know, I'm from Virginia, where Thomas Jefferson is also from. And he's a big fucking deal here. Like, all of our buildings and roads and shit are named after him. And there's an elite prep school here, which basically only accepts white and Asian kids, that's named after him. And we have statues and pictures of him every fucking where. And it disgusts me, honestly. I mean, he was a monster. And in my opinion, he was basically the founding father of child sexual assault. So if you look at his Wikipedia page, he has all this glowing praise about what an amazing man he was. But the fact that he owned people, it doesn't even appear on the page until like several paragraphs down, like five whole ass paragraphs down. And then after it says he owned people, in the exact same sentence, it says that he condemned slavery. Like, nigga, pick a side.
Honestly, contradiction much. We make a big deal of him in Philadelphia too, because, Declaration of Independence and stuff, but it's also well known that he just didn't get along with a lot of people. Like he had major beef with like a lot of people. And that's like, how do you get beef with people in the 18th century? You had to be drawn heavily to get beef with people at that time. Like all you're doing with like sipping tea and dying in like your 40s. Like this man was drawn,
He was
basically.
taking tea out of people's hands, throwing it in the Boston Harbor, and being like, no taxation,
And stealing children. Like he was just doing
and
way too
stealing
much.
children. Yes, I believe that he was stealing a lot of children. You have to look deep down on his page to find out the tip of the iceberg of like the wild shit about him. Especially where it lists like his children and wives in the little sidebar thingy on his Wikipedia page. You can see like the wording there is like a little fucked up. It says he was married to Martha Wales, and it says he has, quote, six children with Martha Wales and up to six children with Sally Hemings. And then his page mentions it was, quote unquote, rumored that he had a relationship with one of his slaves. Like, not a rumor, but anyway, go on. Then there's one line on his page about Sally, and then it says they began a sexual relationship where she became pregnant at 16 years old. You cannot begin a sexual relationship with a 44-year-old man at 16 because there's another way to word that. And the fact that they worded it like that is super telling. Basically, his wife, Martha, passed away when he was 39. And then, like a couple of years later, he just turns into a motherfucking child predator.
And honestly, the age gap thing, a lot of people want to say, oh, well, it was a sign of the times. But again, if you do your research and just kind of like look into that stuff, it really wasn't. Like those were like
Nope.
arranged marriages. And
Nope.
usually relationships weren't that big of an age gap then. Like there was a power struggle. I mean, if you really want to think about it, like it wasn't just the age, it was the race where you weren't even really considered a human back then. Women weren't even considered full people back then. So like Sally, God bless her, but she was really in the worst position she possibly could have been.
Absolutely. And for anybody to think otherwise is like fucked up. And if you look at Sally's Wikipedia page, it describes her as the mother of his shadow family. And that is the most unbelievably fucked up way I've ever heard anybody describe like a family of human beings. Like I have actually never even heard that term before I clicked on her page and I saw that. Like I've heard of an outside family, I've heard of a secret family, but shadow family, like the way that they phrase it, it makes it sound like it's a conspiracy like being perpetuated against him. And there's a separate article from both of their pages, which is called the Jefferson Hemings controversy. And I'm like, the word controversy being used here to describe how he raped and impregnated a 16-year-old girl who was enslaved by him is fucking wild. And to me, that's like saying that, that dude Joseph Fritzl, it's like saying what Joseph Fritzl did to his daughter was a controversy when he kept her locked in his motherfucking basement and impregnated her for fucking years. And that's basically what Thomas Jefferson did to Sally. And I don't care how white people try to glorify him. Like, he wasn't even close to a good person.
Very, very dark that they would say shadow family. And in this context, I'm like, is that like another like jab with like racism? Like,
I
why
think
shadow?
so.
Why shadow of all words to say when describing them? These people like try the worst things to say.
Absolutely. I'm like, shadow family. I bet if you look at like, you know, like for example, somebody who has like a mistress, like if they look at like a white guy who had a white mistress and she had kids, I bet you they don't say it was his fucking shadow family. Like that is not a normal way to describe that. disgusting.
And they weren't even in the shadows. Like everybody knew about it. They were right there.
Right.
They were right there. You could see them. They're like, oh, there's old Sal and his kids
Not
and
old Sally.
Thomas.
I'm dead.
That was awful. My God. But but if you look at the Jefferson Hemings controversy page on Wikipedia, it goes into more detail about how Sally Hemings was literally his wife's sister. Like, yeah, his enslaved, raped, and impregnated his wife's 16-year-old half sister most of her life until he died. Like, do you realize like these men, like, do you know how like sickly they are by the time that they die? He just powered through that and just kept
Ugh,
torturing this poor girl.
disgusting.
Moving on, I had to take a breath. One of the historians mentioned on his page describes what he did as being in character with the times. I guess you can make the argument that slavery was in character with the times, but the rest, I honestly can't say no, because even then, it seems like even other slave owners were like, that's a bit much. Like to just keep her under lock and key. And that's not a normal thing to do what he did. And it's not a normal thing for his father-in-law to have done the same thing to like Sally's mother. The dude calls it part of the natural landscape in Virginia. Bree, you're a part of Virginia. Is that what you guys do down there? I'm looking down there. Is that what you do?
No, we don't do that shit down here. We do a lot of fucked up shit, but we don't do that.
All right. Well, I'm gonna have to go down there and check because I'm scared of Virginians. I don't know what's going on down there. It's dark down there. It's
We have
shadowy down there, as they
shadows.
would say. Yeah, it's
Shadow
shadowy down
families.
there. The Monticello Foundation, they upkeeps his plantation and legacy, and the stuff commissioned a DNA test that confirmed that he fathered Sally's children. If that wasn't obvious enough, I guess they still wanted to have proof of it. But then that same foundation would not allow their descendants to be buried there, where all his other descendants through Martha are buried. Like they're already siblings to begin with, in like the first generation. Like they're still very interconnected. They have the same father. Like, why isn't this happening? And they also found out that they were keeping her in a room underneath a terrace there. Like, why did he even keep her body if he didn't even like supposedly cherish her?
No, he kept her like living there. Like her room was underneath a terrace at Monticello. Like that's where she lived. Isn't that
That's so
weird?
horrible. Then they're going to say that they can't tell the nature of the relationship when he first met her when she was 14 years old. 14. President of the United States. 14-year-old girl. So he said, this foundation said, and I quote, we can't really know what the dynamic was. Was it rape? Was there affection? We felt we had to present a range of views, including the most painful one. I feel like all
Yeah.
around there was nothing but pain.
Painful for who? What? Like it is painful for me to even have to think about what he did to her. Like it had to be painful for Sally. And these niggas are over here talking about it's painful to discuss the negative parts of his legacy. And it's because the president of the Thomas Jefferson Foundation is a white man and they identify with him. And that's it. And it's disgusting. Like the hidden room that she was kept in under the fucking Paris, it had a slave tunnel that connected it to Thomas's room. And Monticello was literally designed to facilitate enslavement and rape. And you're sitting here like tickle truthing us about the relationship.
This is just wild to remember because like this man was just like writing this document like, yeah, all men are created equal, but I wanted slave tunnel directly to my bedroom. Like what what even was that? Well, even at one point, Sally had the option to petition for her freedom and live free in Paris, but Thomas, child rapist ass Jefferson, convinced her to take her pregnant self back to Virginia, and he said he'd free their kids when they turned 21. Do you think that he wrote anything that said that would be binding for her to free her kids? Do you think he would
Absolutely
do
not.
something like that for her?
No.
Ridiculous. Because why not just free them from the jump? She was 16, her mother and all of her other relatives were back in the US, so I understood why she went back, but it's still so disgusting to even have to ask her to come back to Virginia and be his pregnant slave basically forever. And additionally, I have to ask, why would that even be like I understand like people try to like frame it as, oh well, he told her to go live in Paris, but this is an American slave that you're just letting loose in Paris. Did she know French? Did she have any
She it said like
skills?
while she was there, she did start to learn it. Like she was starting to learn French and like ingratiate herself like in French culture. And then she didn't really want to come back, but he persuaded her by saying that he would free her and her kids when they turned 21. So like I mean, he basically just like convinced her to come based on his word, which wasn't quite the truth.
That's awful. But also it makes me think like, okay, you can leave, but like I can understand like that like soft hand, but like in like a an iron fisted way, like, oh, you can leave, but who's gonna support you like I do? I relate to
Right. And
that.
she's a child. So, and all of her family was there. So, you know, I mean, you can't, I would probably have come back too. And so, according to the Wikipedia article, so one of his sons ran away at 24 years old. And Thomas Jefferson was still alive at that point. And so it's like, if he was going to free them when they turned 21, why did one of his sons have to run away when he was 24? And then it says one of his daughters left when she was 21. And they say it's not clear if she had permission or not. And there's no records like indicating that he freed her. So I'm pretty sure she was just like, fuck it, I'm leaving. And then the rest of his kids through Sally, they were granted freedom through his will after he died. Um, and hilariously, apparently when he died, like he was broke as fuck. And it says that his hundreds of slaves and his estate had to be sold after he died to pay his debts. And then one of his white daughters freed her aunt slash stepmother, Sally, and some of Sally's other relatives so they wouldn't have to be sold at auction. And I'm reading that like, how fucking kind of you, Thomas Jefferson's white daughter. Anyway, she lived as a free woman in Virginia for 9 years until she died. So if you compare that 9 years of freedom with the 40-ish years that she was enslaved by Thomas fucking Jefferson, and she lived under a goddamn terrace, like with a slave tunnel connecting to his room, like 9 years is nothing. I mean, I'm glad that she did get 9 years of freedom, but 40-ish years from the time as a teenager, like, come on.
The whole situation is actually so heartbreaking because like I can honestly think like how alone she must have felt. Not only like the situation with him, but like with her family members and like the people that she would have related to, I guess would have been like the other slaves. Like she clearly would have been like put away and like cordoned off from the other people. So like who would she
Right.
even have talked to about this?
And I'm sure other people, like other slaves, got sold or like, dealt with shit. And, you know, what could she do? She couldn't like make friends with them. You couldn't have any kind of permanent relationships with other slaves. And I said he had hundreds of them. Like, what a fucked up situation to be in. And see your children be slaves. And oh, I just can't even, I can't even imagine.
I even read once that he only picked Sally too because he only saw humanity in her because of her whiteness.
That is fucking foul. And you know what? That's true. If you look at the like historical records of the time, a lot of people they thought like black people weren't human. They thought it was like a whole other species. And some people even thought like you can't breed like a black person with a white person, which obviously that's not true. Like they created whole shadow families. Like, that fucking society back then. I mean, I just can't even imagine.
And going off of that, I think like he treated like his children that he had with her like they weren't really his children, of course, but like you could tell how those children went from his descendants that are walking around nowadays. They went right back to what they knew, and they went and they procreated with black people because I
Hmm.
feel like he thought, even though he was with Sally and maybe he provided for her in whatever ways you can provide for a woman that you literally enslaved and impregnated, he just saw them as a taint. Even though they were like what, only what, like a quarter black?
Yeah, they were.
And even if they were to have like white descendants, they still had that weird caste system in the South. So they were really never going to escape that black taint that the people saw back then in that society. So it's really terrible. Like that whole family seems almost just unbelievable to just like wrap your head around.
Right. And it said in the article, like the one daughter that left at 21 with her without permission, it did say that she was white passing. And so it's like I really wonder like what her life was like, because I'm sure she had to like change her name and like, not be identified as like one of Thomas Jefferson's daughters, because then people would have known like, well, you're clearly not one of Martha's children, like because I think she was born like way after Martha died. So she probably had to like change her whole identity and just like go into hiding basically. Like what kind of quality of life is that? And he didn't care. All he wanted was Sally living under his terrace where he had easy access to her and clearly did not give a fuck about the children that they had.
Like no, like the teeth flying out their mouth. Like it shouldn't have happened. They should have been like rock'em sock'em robots. That wasn't a thing back then. Maybe it was like rock'em sock'em wooden figures, but at the same time, they should have been going at it. Somebody's ass should have been kicked. Like I cannot stand this man.
I am so glad that Thomas Jefferson, when he died, he was broke as a fucking joke. Because in some sick way, like that gives me some comfort. Like the fact that he was so, even with hundreds of people doing free literal slave labor for him, he still couldn't hack it in Virginia. Meanwhile, I'm a Virginian, I'm a homeowner, I'm living large. I'm just kidding. But he died broke. And I don't care what he did for the Commonwealth of Virginia. I don't care what he did for America. Like Thomas Jefferson, you literally raped and you enslaved children, your own children, and Sally as a child. Like, rest in piss, nigga. On
Okay,
a
wait.
scale of 1 to 10, how much do we hate this baby daddy?
1,000, over 1,000. I hate him. Hate him. Thank you for freeing us from the British, I guess, but no, I hate him. And
I feel
also,
like
I
we could have
just
done it without him.
yeah, honestly, I like Googled how he died. The first result was what finally killed Thomas Jefferson, and it's literally from Monticello.org. Exhaustion from intense diarrhea.
Oh
Thank
no.
God.
No
Thank
way.
God. This man pooped himself to near exhaustion and just died on whatever like bedpan they put him on. I'm so happy.
Oh my God. So he died broke and shitting himself to death. Yes.
Yup. That's how it goes back then. Like it was not sweet. They should have like I would have been more fearful of like a vengeful God back then when your odds of shitting yourself to death were like 1 in 2. Like
That's why they call it like Montezuma's revenge, right? Like,
that was Sally's revenge.
right, that's what slave ghosts that were like, ancestors of Sally's came back and were like, nigga, you gonna shit yourself to death.
And how? And how?
Boom, Thomas Jefferson, we fucking hate you. And honestly, I hate all the other founding rapists. So we hate all of you, and we're coming for all of you eventually on this show. So rest in piss. You shit yourself to death. You deserved it. Period.
You know what we should mention?
Tell me.
Both of our baby daddies are white. Do you see similarities in our cases?
Oh, yeah, we should mention that. Should we? Do we have to expose ourselves that way? Yes, we are two black women, and both of
We
our
say
baby
nigga
daddies.
a lot, so we're not. You can't
That's true. It's
try
a
to like
little late.
cancel us for that. You can't cancel us
Yeah,
for saying nigga. We're black.
it's
We're
a little late to
black. We're gonna
reveal
say
that we are
nigga.
black, but but yes, both of our baby daddies unfortunately our Caucasian males.
Heavy on the cock.
And that's our show, guys. Make sure to listen next week. We post new episodes on Wednesdays. And feel free to suggest some other famous and historical baby daddies for us to roast. And we also want you guys to write to us about like the wildest shit that your baby daddy has done or like your friend's baby daddy has done. Give them nicknames like ours are Party City Skeleton and Drunky Crashy. And we'll read it on the show. And you can send us voice messages. You can send them through Instagram or through Spotify, about these baby daddies. And we might play it in one of our episodes. So, Dee, do you want to tell them where they can follow us?
You can follow us on IG at WHY Baby Daddy because why Baby Daddy? Why? Why?
Right. Why? Why you like this? And on TikTok at WHY Baby Daddy. Why Baby Daddy? And tune in next Wednesday. That's our show. Bye bye.
Bye bye.